can't hear anything after
Can you not hear anything at all from me?
the clap. Of course I can hear it.
You jerk. Come on.
Okay, that's my humor.
I
And
just.
you think I'm bad? Try being married to my wife. Oh Lord, she's brilliant.
Mm.
Okay, so what's happening? What are you gonna do?
I want to know all about you. I want you to tell
Okay.
me everything. Start from the beginning. Actually,
Uh,
it's before the beginning because you come from local bagpiping royalty. So how did that even start?
1962. My dad and his best friend Dave Keachie went to a concert at a church dinner of the Salt Lake Scots, and it was just when the Salt Lake Scots were forming.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what happened, and I'm sure maybe one of the Barclays might change my look at it, but
We'll see if they have a rebuttal.
oh, they can, oh, they can. But what happened is they wanted to form the Salt Lake Scots because they really wanted more of a gentleman's club.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
and older guys playing the pipes.
Sure,
And
sure.
actually, my dad actually had a uh, a a role of the early Salt Lake Scots, and Dave Barkley's on that role.
Oh, yeah.
But Dave, his whole focus was getting the kids to learn the pipes,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't want to be in a gentleman's club. He wanted to be in a band.
You can't have kids in a gentleman's club.
No. So Dave went back to Utah and just got Utah rolling again.
Mm-hmm.
And then so my dad took a vacation took the family up to Vancouver, BC. We went to Jake T. McCarty's, and he bought a set of bagpipes for himself and for Dave Keachie, his
Yeah.
best friend.
Hey, but how
And
old were you about this time? I'm just trying to paint a picture in my brain.
62, I would have been uh, 4 going on 5.
So just a little kid.
Yeah, a little kid.
Yeah.
And so my dad bought the pipes, came back, uh, learned the pipes as best they could. They didn't have really sterling instruction, so
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately they learned a lot of bad habits, which over the years they unlearned.
Yeah.
But they started putting together a band, and Utah was just this other band, and doing their thing. And so I'm a little kid, and it was family. It was
Yeah.
all family,
Yeah.
and we used to have these wonderful band picnics in the summer where my dad would get a big projector and he'd show Scottish films like Rob Roy or Gunga Din or something,
Mm-hmm.
and just have big barbecues. And I always, loved the pipes my whole life, going to the parades, watching the bands march in the parades,
Yeah.
and but
Well, and also in those days, then these would have been the only two pipe bands in Utah, right? It was just Utah and Salt Lake Scots, because I know that Wasatch hadn't formed yet. I know that
oh no,
White
no,
Peaks certainly hadn't formed yet. Was
no.
maybe did Ben Lomond have a program at their high school back
They
then?
did. They did in the 70s,
Oh, okay.
and that's another part of the whole story
Oh well,
is that,
don't let me push you ahead then.
man, you're stepping on my tail.
Yeah.
Uh, but the bands both did their own thing. Utah did their thing. Scots did their thing. I remember we did a joint program at the Terrace Ballroom one time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fine,
Yeah.
and I always thought we got along. There were people who didn't like each other. Well, that's life,
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate. But but about the time I turned 8, um, it was time to. Oh no, it was older. Yeah, 8, because it would have been between the third and fourth grade. I had to select an instrument that I wanted to play in the school band,
Ah.
and I just loved the clarinet. I thought the clarinet was such a beautiful instrument,
Yeah.
and I remember sitting at dinner and telling my parents. I said, "Well, they want me to select an instrument, and I would like to play the clarinet." And Dad says, "No." My if you have you ever met my dad?
I haven't, no, but tell me all about him, man. He sounds like a character.
Dad was a character, but Dad said, "Nope, our pipe band needs drummers. You're going to learn to play the drums."
All
Boom.
right, there's the
And
commitment we need.
okay. And first couple of years learning it, I hated it. Didn't
Yeah.
like it at all. And then I started kind of playing in the band a little bit, but never had really good instruction. I had a gentleman named Wolf Pickles teach me for a while. He was a drum major and a drummer. He later left and went to California to play with the Lockheed Pipe Band,
And I'm
which was
sorry,
a
you said it was his first name Wolf?
Wilf,
Okay.
Wilf.
Still,
Eng,
Wilf
Eng,
Pickles, still a very cool name.
oh yeah, and Wilf is a good guy, kind of a hot-headed Englishman though, and and that's another story
You
entirely.
you got to be
Uh,
tough if you grew up with the last name Pickles.
I would think so,
Yeah. It's kind of
but
a boy
any
named Sue situation.
yeah, definitely a boy named Sue situation.
Yeah.
But you know, my friend Dave Keachy, Big Dave, Little Dave,
Oh, I
okay,
see. It was a
I
multi-generational friendship.
yeah, and I can't say Big Dave without saying Big Dave. That's Big
Yeah,
Dave's name.
I see.
My dad's best friend, thick and thin. Uh,
Thick and thin.
actually,
Is that a play on if you call
no,
him if
actually,
you call him Big Dave, does that mean that he's the thick one? What
well,
is
they both had a background in Daggett County, Utah. Dad was out there as a school teacher, and Big Dave was raised on the ranch out there, the
uh-huh.
Williams Ranch. And one time they got arrested and jailed because their pickup truck didn't have the weight thing. They used to say U6000 on it or
Right,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they got arrested
They
and
went
jailed
they
for
went
that.
to jail for that?
Yes.
UDOT was serious, man.
Oh, oh yeah. Well, Daggett County. What can you say?
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
so
think maybe it's just that the cops were bored, huh? They needed something to do.
I was just and these two idiots, and they probably both knew my dad and Dave,
They
but it was
probably
just, oh,
did.
you're breaking the law. So anyway, Dad and Dave were just these two pipers. They were brothers, as thick
Yeah,
as thieves, and
yeah.
so they just kind of moved through the band. And in the mid '60s, they had a piper named Charlie Marshall come along, and Charlie really helped them become a better band. And in fact, I'm thinking Santa Rosa in 1963 or 64, they went out, grade C. There was ABC back then.
What? I didn't even know
Eh,
that.
Oh, yeah. And so they
Huh.
went out and they won in
Really?
grade C. And
Wow.
they're also, who, us?
Yeah. Bunch of nobodies from the middle of nowhere, Utah, huh?
Exactly.
Wow.
And then they went out the next year, and my sisters were both heavily into dancing.
Hmm.
And the band didn't do so well the next year, but the girls all took. My sister Mary won the aggregate, the gold, and my sister Jane took the bronze. And
Wow. I've got to
uh,
imagine that their learning was similar to yours in that like they were almost like in an island in the middle of the desert. Like surely they didn't have like the world class instruction out there,
actually,
right?
the girls did. They
Did
had a
they?
woman named Jan Webb who was
I've
an
heard her name
insane,
before.
yeah, insanely good instructor. The
Okay.
girls learned from a master,
Ah, okay.
whereas the boys and the pipers, you know, my it's a story of learning as catch can.
Hmm.
And Dad and Big Dave improved, but then we got to the early 1970s. Well, 1969, 1970, and there was a guy named Paul Howard who was teaching us, and Paul was a good drummer, but just didn't come around a lot.
Hmm.
And then it was January of 1970, and the first practice of January 1970, and there were four people at practice: my dad, Big Dave, Bruce Hanson, and one other person, and they just said our band's dying.
Hmm.
There's no one here, and so
Had
they
the
voted.
numbers been much higher than that previously?
They were a little higher,
Yeah.
but all they did was stand around and play the favorite tunes of the pipe major,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
didn't want to learn much. And this is after their mid '60s successes, and they did the Devil's Brigade movie in '67,
Right,
'68.
that's right. I asked Robert about that a little bit, but feel free
Hmm.
to fill in details if you want to, because that's a fun story too.
Oh, they just had a blast.
Yeah.
They just had a blast, and they had a drummer in the band, a guy named Phil Gard, and Phil Gard was a jazz musician
Hmm.
and a drummer. And so they had to use Phil Gard to play the leads because they had the two other drummers, Fred Laycock and Jim Burns. They were okay.
Hmm.
They were mass band drummers.
Hmm.
So Phil had to play leads, and they did really well. The bass drummer was Earl Jackson, who was a huge part of the Salt Lake Scots then, and then he went over to the Utah Pipeband and was just like this icon of bass drumming for years
Hmm.
and years and years. So, uh, when I watched that film, I can actually name everybody in that film.
That's pretty cool.
So there you go. Now you're getting me crying because it
Yeah.
means so much.
No, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, not very many of us, at least out here, have as much of a like, especially multi-generational tie to piping and drumming. And so I can only imagine because I haven't had that experience, but I can imagine
Mhm.
that. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Oh, it's just fun. And so
Yeah.
anyway, they had that meeting, January 1970. They voted out the pipe major, put Bruce Hansen in as the pipe major, and suddenly people start showing up at practice again.
Mm.
And my friend Dave Keachie, Little Dave,
Hmm.
he's having the same problem right now. He plays for the Gordon Highlanders up in Tacoma, I believe it is.
Mm.
And the drummers just weren't coming out. And Dave was teaching them drumming, but he also pipes.
It's a
So
relatable problem, man. I think all of us are starving for drummers.
yeah, and what happened there is no one could stand the girl that David put in as drum sergeant, so they weren't coming out. Well, she got angry and quit. So Dave's back playing lead drummer. Suddenly, all the drummers show up.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with the Scots. Is
Uh,
they put Bruce in, and Bruce just lit the fire. He
mm.
just got them going again. And by 1974, we were good enough to go down and compete in Santa Rosa again.
Yeah.
We got our butts handed to us, but we still had fun.
Sure. Yeah.
But we got to see the Lockheed Pipe Band, which became Dunvegan later on. That was
Mm.
Ozzie Reed's band. And then, so what happened in the 70s is 70, 71, a guy named Doug Stephen came on the scene, Canadian drummer, learned under George Pride, and Geordie Pride learned with the Powell River Pipe Band. Have you ever heard of them?
Not Powell River, no.
Oh man, you got to find the album.
Yeah, I'll check
It,
it
it
out.
for that era, it's the cutting edge pipe band album. Everyone goes, "Ooh, Powell River," and Geordie Pride was their lead drummer, and he had a very unique style. And in fact, back in Scotland when they made was it McNish Distillery? It was like the super band. I'm thinking it's McNish, but it's been so long.
Mm.
And so they brought in all the super hot pipers, all the super hot drummers, Alex Stuthert, Jim Hutton, Burley Barr, all these super drummers. And they asked George Pride to come over and drum with them. And he goes, "No, I've just got too much going over here." So George Pride was that good.
Mm.
So he taught his students to be that good.
As
And
you've been talking, I've just been Googling around, and the Piping Press has this article that looks like a good read that's titled Powell River, George Pride, and the Impact of That Triumph Street Win on Western Canada.
oh, yeah, yeah. Because Western Canada, I don't know if you know this, Western Canada has a very unique style.
I know that Eastern Canada has a unique style. It's a big country, so it doesn't surprise me that there'd be a difference over in Western.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because there were bands like Triumph Street, City of Victoria.
Hmm.
If you can ever find it, there's a tune by City of Victoria called Weird Jig that their drummer, Colin McGee, wrote. And it's the most bizarre thing you could ever find. I want to find the sheet music and get it to Wasatch to
Hmm.
see if they'll try it. So I'm always finding these super hard tunes to give to Wasatch. Say, try this.
Hey
Come on,
guys,
you
do
guys are
this.
great too. Do this. But I know Ross would play it, but I don't
Yeah.
know if anyone else would.
Did you say that was one that Triumph Street did?
No, no, City of Victoria
City
did
of
that tune.
Victoria.
City of Victoria was Jamie Troy, Steve Geddes, Colin McGee, just all these heroes of the pipe band world. Okay,
Hmm.
and they were and Triumph Street, City of Victoria, SFU were all the Western Canada stylings, and so people like Bruce Gandy played with. Did he
Mm.
play City of Victoria? Yeah, City of Victoria. John Fisher, the famous drummer, played with City of Victoria, and amazing band. Jamie Troy Jr. Um, Funny story about him. We called him the Little Monster because he was a super talented drummer, super talented piper, and the little bugger could dance.
Mm. Do all of it, huh?
And we just called him the Little Monster because I played against him in '89 up in Portland. And this skinny little kid, his dad comes up and puts the drum on him and everything. I'm just going, oh, well, I think I've got this one. And he just annihilated me. It's just like, whoa, someone just got taught a lesson in
Yeah.
humility. So, so anyway, let's go back to '70. We got the band back together. Doug Stephen came on the scene. Doug got me and Dave Keachie out there drumming with the band. Uh, I started learning the Western Canada style of drumming, which is very, very bizarre. I'll have to
Mm.
play it for you sometime.
Yeah.
If I ever get my lazy butt up, I'll come out to your practice and I'll
Yeah,
show
come
you.
on, man.
I'll show you how this is that stage
Hmm.
because there's a lot of accented rolling and tiz rolls, and it's just bizarre. And so anyway, so we get into the early '70s. Everything looks great. And we're sounding great. And And then Doug kind of faded because Doug was a college student and he also got a job as a bus driver and he just didn't have time.
Yeah, that
So it was
happens.
me,
Yeah.
me and Kichi, pretty much.
Little.
And then I did the horrible thing. Oh, then in early high schools, 74, 75, 76, I started learning jazz drumming. Uh, Started playing jazz, and I loved it. Jazz and Scottish drumming are one and the same.
Mm.
Backbeaty, and they just work well. Except Reed Maxwell discovered something a few years ago. Reed used to do a lot of backbeat. So, tis ta pa pa ba da ba da ba, the backbeat sound.
Hmm.
Reed switched it around, so he put everything on the four beat. So it was like a very strong beat.
Hmm.
And Reed's drum course started winning. So, oh well.
Everything kind of shifts and follows whoever's winning, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I've had a couple of drummers here refer to me as old school, which is just fine because I love my drumming.
Old school's cool.
Yeah, old school is cool,
Did you in high school were you living out in Daggett County, or you guys had your family kind of moved in toward the toward the population a little
Oh
bit?
no, no. I grew up in Rose Park. We moved into
Gotcha,
my
yeah.
house a month after I was born.
Gotcha.
So, West
Rose
Side
Park,
kid,
huh? You're a
Rose Park.
so you were a gangster,
No, no, Rose Park.
huh?
Rose Park was Leave It to Beaverville when I grew up. It was just wonderful.
Because right now that's like the hot spot for like Utah-based Spotify rap. It's definitely not. It doesn't, or at least my impression is that the music coming out of there is nothing like pipe band music. Um, so yeah, I
No,
mean,
no.
groovy, like neighborhoods change, but
Now the neighborhood's changed, but things change.
yeah.
So we go through and so then we go to 1976, and I'm the only drummer of the band because Kichi's gone off and joined the Air Force. And then I got out of high school. I got a job for a whopping $2.80 an hour, and I said, "This is nuts." So I joined the Navy,
There you
and
go.
of course Bruce Hansen almost killed me. I lose my only drummer.
Hmm.
So joined the Navy. Went in December of '76. Uh, what's funny is that I tried out for the drum and bugle corps because it was a
Yeah.
special company. And they said, well, if you know an instrument, try it. So I went out there and they told me play this, play this, play this, and then I showed them all this funky stuff that I learned in Scottish, and they're going, "Oh yeah, you'll work."
I gotcha. Yeah.
So I had an accelerated boot camp, which
Yeah.
was like 6 weeks, and then we spent 4 weeks entertaining,
My impression
being
is that an
musicians.
accelerated boot camp is preferable to the standard. Just get you out of there as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they pushed us through,
Yeah.
which is fine. But then I'm in the drum and bugle corps. I get to go to a big welcoming thing for the Navy coming in, a flight coming in from a pack cruise, and
Mm.
then we went to Knott's Berry Farm, and
Hmm.
I mean, freaking boot camp, and I'm in Knott's Berry
Yeah.
Farm. Anyway, so I finish up that. So I really didn't drum much from '76 through '80,
Mm.
and so then I come back out, and this is a funny story. It's kind of weird, but it's me being a grump.
Yeah.
So I come out, and it's January, February of 1981, and I come out to play in the drum corps, and there's a woman named Pam Shelton playing in the corps. Pam is the drummer who lit the fire under drumming in Utah.
Hmm.
And if anyone says no, I'll call them a liar because she did it.
Yeah.
She moved them into the modern era, taught them how to play music, how to read music, and they became really good. And and so of course Dave Keachie was madly in love with her, but it was also a bad time in that February Dave Keachie's wife was killed in a car wreck.
Oh no.
It's like, oh brother, these are my family.
Yeah.
So I'm learning the drumming, and Keachie hands me their music. And Pam goes, well, that's grade one music. And Dave just looks at her and he goes, he'll learn it. So, oh, whatever. So I took it,
Yeah.
went through it, learned it all in a couple of weeks. And Pam was quite disturbed that I could come in and learn their music in 2 weeks. And well, sure, be disturbed, make your
Yeah.
music different,
Yeah.
make it different. And then I was there. Uh, there was an issue where they had bought a new drum for the band, And I didn't want a drum because I was still new. And somebody got the idea that they were going to give me the new drum. And it was a piper whose son was in the drum line.
Mm.
And he was coming in making all these rules about who got this drum. And I'm just looking at this guy going, "You're not even a drummer. You're not even a leader in the band."
Yeah.
And I went to my dad and I just said, "Dad, I just put up with 4 years of politics. I'm not going to do this.
Hmm.
I'm sorry." And he goes, "Okay, no problem." Dad was very understanding.
Yeah.
So, other than just playing for myself and finding great rhythm of music to play, I didn't play again until 1986. And I was
So
at the
you
Super Bowl.
you took a pretty darn good, pretty long break there then.
Yeah, but I was still drumming,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and but just playing a little jazz here and there, but not really hard Scottish drumming. A Super Bowl party of it was the Chicago Bears versus the New England Patriots. A wonderful game. It, Chicago just ate them alive. and, and it was like this party. In fact, they even gave the ball to Refrigerator Perry, who is this gigantic lineman,
Mm.
and he just kind of trundles it in across the line for a touchdown. But anyway, enough of football. So Kichi was there at the party because
Mm.
we we all knew each other kind of through all these different ways.
Hmm.
And Kichi was a Kodak repairman who knew the people who put on the Super Bowl party, and he was there. And he goes, "Why don't you get back into drumming?" And I said, "Oh, I don't want to get back into drumming." And he keeps talking and talking, being Dave. And finally, he talks me into it. And the band was the Syrah Pipe Band. Have you ever heard of them?
No. I
Okay,
mean, CIRA, as in the Sharon Center for Education and Arts, like here in Orem, right?
exactly.
I live in the CIRA district. I'm like a half block from the park.
Well, they sponsored a pipe band.
I had no idea. I
Yeah,
Why didn't I know this?
well, because they went away.
I gotta go talk to somebody.
It was the late 70s, early 80s. Okay, and the guy in charge of Syrah, the pipe major, was a guy named Royce Lerwick. And to say Royce was a little eccentric is
Is that an
not an
understatement?
exaggeration. Royce was just very different.
Yeah.
And if you knew how to put up with Royce, you were fine. If you didn't, then you didn't. And what happened is Royce came here. He lived in Minnesota, but he went to BYU. And he came to a Salt Lake Scots practice. And he started making all these suggestions. And uh, Bruce Hanson just basically told him to go away.
Mm.
Who are you to come in here and start telling us all this stuff? And I agree. You don't walk in and tell people how to do things.
Yeah.
So he went to the Utah Pipe Band. And at that time, Utah was struggling. I mean, they were not very good at all. And Royce went to their band. And this is funny. It was the summer of '78 because I was in the Navy. This is all third party to me.
Hmm.
But summer of '78, Royce worked with the Utah Pipe Band for 6 weeks, got them polished enough to go out to Santa Rosa, and they won
Mm. That quick, huh?
that quick.
Turned
And
it all around.
exactly. And Dad's friend was a guy named Charlie Lumsden, whose daughter is married to John Barkley. And of
Hmm.
course, she calls Charlie and says, "We won." And Charlie tells my dad at church the next day, "Oh, yeah, they won yesterday." And Dad's going, "Oh, come on, Charlie.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I, I saw them 6 weeks ago at the
Yeah.
24th of July parade. No way." And he goes, "Yeah,
Don't
they
lie to
won."
me at church.
Yes. And Charlie was a former bishop, too.
So you better
So,
not be lying.
so anyway, Royce did that for them. And so he got that band going. Well, Dave Barkley is Dave Barkley. And Dave was a very strong-willed man, mega talented piper,
Hmm.
insanely strong piper.
Hmm.
But if you did things that aggravated Dave, uh, Dave didn't want you in the band. So Royce lasted a couple of years with the Utah Pipe Band, and then and then at that time, Dave Keachie kept trying to tell the Salt Lake Scots who he played with, "Let's go to Santa Rosa, let's compete, let's compete."
Little Dave,
No, we
right?
don't want to go. And so Dave and his wife then Pam got married. Then they went out to Santa Rosa, and Royce Lerwick's there, and they're all just talking, and the Utah hadn't come out there, and Royce is saying, "Well, I don't know what's going on." He said that Virginia Barkley came and got all of my uniform parts so they could take them in for cleaning.
And he never got him back.
Yes, and Dave said, "Royce, you've been dry cleaned out of the
You've
band."
been dry cleaned out.
So Roy said, well, I'll
Uh,
make my own band.
that's pretty
And
funny.
so he made the Sierra Pipe Band. And
Oh, really?
really good band because there was Royce, a piper named Barry McKendry, who was a BYU student, a guy named, what it was Jim's name? Oh, I can't remember his name now. But a guy named Doug Miles, who is a huge soloist out of California.
Mm.
He's married to Mary Miles, and her son is Eli Fugate. And Eli's the drummer who just played a couple of years ago with St. Lawrence O'Toole.
Yeah.
Eli's a mega talent. So they gelled together, made a really good band, and they were really unique. They got their drums in like a week before the Salt Lake competition,
Mm.
and they wore. I can't remember. They wore a kilt. It was called a Ancient Hunting Steward of Appin. They wore black shirts with these gold kind of neckerchief things that
Huh.
they're tucked. I mean, it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And both, okay, this is pipe band politics. Both the Utah Pipe Band and the Salt Lake Scots refused to compete against them
Really?
because they hadn't been around long enough.
Really?
Fine. So they just put on a show. They didn't care. And I mean,
Yeah.
just beautiful. So
And this
anyway,
was the Sierra Pipe Band. I'm just
the,
blown away that I live here. I play bagpipes here in the Sharon district, and I haven't known about it. I went and played pipes for the Sierra production of Brigadoon a couple years ago, and I
uh,
haven't known about any of this. I gotta do some Googling. I gotta learn some stuff.
I don't know if you'll find it on Google because it was just really like maybe 4 or 5 years.
Little flash in the pan thing, huh?
And in fact, Sarah told us that we couldn't use their name anymore because they weren't sponsoring us.
Yeah.
So we became the Wasatch Pipe Band.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
And
Okay.
so anyway, I joined in '86, started playing with the Sierra Pipe Band and having a blast. We went to the Salt Lake games in '86 at Dirks Field, but we didn't have enough pipers to compete, so we just
Mm.
did it for critique.
Yeah.
And the judges are just going, "You guys would have won this." Well,
Mm.
yeah, we know. We just can't get pipers.
That's when you ask the judge if they want to come play with a Utah band.
Oh, it was Ozzie Reed. And have you ever met Ozzie Reed?
No, I haven't.
Oh, notorious reputation. But I love Ozzie. For some reason, he and I just clicked. And Ozzie's a grumpy old Scot, and if you cross him,
Aren't all judges grumpy
oh,
old Scots?
no, Ozzie's over the top. He can be mean.
He makes the
In
rest of them
fact,
seem like sweethearts, huh?
he's been retired from judging. He was
Yeah.
so mean. But
He
it
got
was
dry
Ozzie
cleaned out of
Reed.
judging.
Yeah, but Ozzie Reed was there, and I just hit it off with Ozzie Reed, and we just said we just don't have the numbers, so we just played for a couple of years as the now Wasatch Pipe Band,
Hmm.
and then it was the summer of '87, and Andrew Morrill shows up at our practice, and he's just going, "Why don't you guys just join our band? We need the drummers, we need your talent and pipers," on and on and on. So we took a
And
vote,
he's talking about Utah Pipe Band at that point?
Utah Pipe Band at
Yeah.
that time. And so Kichi and I both voted against it because
Mm.
I didn't want to be in any part of the Utah Pipe Band.
Hmm.
To me, they were the strict Mormon band, and
Which is funny since you were down in Orem,
mhm,
right? Which is down in Utah County.
yeah, I know. And
Yeah.
so Kichi and I both voted against it, but everyone else voted for it, so we showed up. Of course, Kichi and I show up, and we end up spending 20 years in the band.
Yeah.
Everyone else took off. Doug Miles went back to California and married Mary, and so we did the best we could. And so Andrew says, "Oh yeah, the drum sergeant, Christine Jensen. I just love her. She's like a little sister, but a very talented drummer." And he said, "Oh, she knows all about you guys coming out, all about it." So Dave and I show up, and Christine is just livid. I mean, what would you think? You're the lead drummer, and the two hot shots show up.
Mhm.
Like, oh Lord,
And maybe she didn't know, huh?
she didn't know. Andrew didn't say a
So
word,
it's a surprise to her.
and so she treated us very coolly. And so Kichi, I just wasn't going to put up with it. I
Yeah.
would just, but Kichi got going with him, and he played with him in '87, and then we formed a Utah Pipe Band Grade 4 for '88. So I just took over the drum corps for that,
Mm.
and had the Kitzmiller brothers, who were a couple of local guys, very talented, and we did okay. We got beat by the Scots in Grade 4, but they've been playing Grade 4 for 100 years,
Mm.
and they were polished.
Mm.
And so, and then the band just couldn't support two bands, so finally I started playing with the grade three band, and Christine realized that neither Dave or I want to take over.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is Dave and I started writing music for the drum corps, so their music improved.
Mm.
And so 89, we took a first and a second in grade three at Santa Rosa. 1990, we took two firsts in grade
Wow,
three.
that's great.
And it's like, whoa. And Ozzie Reed is the pipe major at Dunvegan. He's giving me crap about that. And I said, oh, it's just talent. But one of my best friends in drumming, Gloria Cardenas, was his lead drummer. And Gloria's just wonderful. And just love her to bits. And she's still around. In fact, I sent her a 1980s era set of Duthard sticks because she was looking for them.
Mm.
They're rare, very rare. And I had two sets, so I sent her a set.
Mm.
And but I mean, as you can see, they're just people in this whole thing that I love and adore.
Yeah,
But Ozzy, the big grumpy drum pipe major,
yeah.
we were at Payson, and we played and we'd done well. We were having dinner.
This must have been one of the first years that they did a games in Payson, right? Because if I remember right, that's around the time that the competition even started down there.
Yeah, it was Chatwin who had started that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so we're sitting there with Ozzy. We're having dinner, and this is getting away with murder with Ozzy Reed. He goes, he says, "Well, I've often modeled my band's sound on the city of Victoria." And I said, "City of Victoria?" And he goes, "Yes." And I said, "I don't see how you can say the word Dunvegan and city of Victoria in the same breath."
And he threw his drink on your shirt and stood up and stormed out, right?
No, he was drinking single malt. He wouldn't throw that. But no,
he would have
I think
if it had been
I think he
cheaper.
punched me actually.
Did he really?
Yes, but it was we were just having fun.
Yeah.
But
I've been, as you've been telling this story, Bruce, just so you know, I've been like really enjoying like piecing together the world that I like was the pipe band world that I came into when I started playing. And just for context, 89 is the year I was born. So
oh wow,
how does that
wow,
sit?
that's the year we took first and second.
Yep, that's the
Wow.
year.
But see, that's what turns me on. That's Dave Barkley's legacy,
Yeah.
is get the kids on the pipes and the
Yeah, man.
drums.
See,
Yeah.
my like that's exactly why I'm thinking about it. Because like I was born in Provo, not that far away from where you would have been playing with the Sierra Pipe Band, and then it was 14 years later that I went into the Payson High School Pipe Band program.
Hmm.
That you're talking about the first Payson games and stuff like this. Like this is all the groundwork setting up the world that I got to step into. So it's really exciting for me to hear these stories.
Oh, you stepped into a really cool world. I love the Payson area
Yeah.
and the years that band. Every year they put something together,
Hmm.
and that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
And Ben Lomond. You wanted to mention Ben Lomond?
Yeah. Tell me about Ben Lomond.
There was a small pipe band down there called the Job's Daughters. They were affiliated with the Catholic Church,
Hmm.
and Lori Cook, Melinda McPeak. So they played with Ben Lomond, and then they wanted to join the Salt Lake Scots. And I remember this meeting because I was the drum sergeant, and we were voting on whether we should allow women in the band.
Whoa, really?
And I said, I am not going to vote on this. I said, I have absolutely no qualms about letting women in the band. I'm not even going to vote for it. They should be automatically allowed in the band.
Yeah.
And we had the Fabulous Five. It was Bruce Hanson, my dad, Big Dave, Grant Gardner, and I think it was Myron O'Connor. Myron O'Connor would have been Dennis McMaster's father-in-law.
Hmm.
Kate was his daughter. And but Myron, yeah, Irishman, just hilarious. In fact, Myron, before our competition in Santa Rosa in '74, he cut two of his fingertips off. He was a
What?
cabinet maker.
Oh no.
No.
Maybe this was like some wild ancient Irish Celt or Pict like a method for intimidating his enemies. Like, you're about to go and compete against this other band, and he's like, I'm so confident we're gonna win. I'm gonna cut off the tips of my fingers and I'll still beat you.
Could have been, because Dennis McMaster did the same thing 20 years later.
Oh,
Cut
that's
the
right. I
tips off
have
his.
heard that. Yeah, I have heard
Oh,
about
we're just going, Dennis, what are you doing?
that. Yeah.
You're a piper. So anyway, getting back up to where I was in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
We had so Sarah broke up. We'd become the Wasatch Pipe Band.
Right. Right.
So we broke up. In fact, I still think all the bass drums are up at a guy named uh, Bob's house. Probably a couple of big old premieres.
Yeah.
They wouldn't fit in now at all.
Yeah.
But 28 by 16 premieres. Uh, but anyway, that band broke up. We went in, joined the Utah Pipe Band, had a lot of success with the Utah Pipe Band.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but then I had a friend, Charlie Caparel. This is my solo career, okay?
Mhm.
My first solo event was 1986. I played against Dave Keachie and Doug Hansen and got tromped.
Just
And
playing with your buddies, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then just kept playing. Finally started getting silver, started getting golds. But I was down in the games down in Cedar City. They had a great games
Mhm.
uh, toward the end of July, and Charlie Caparel is the judge. And so, very good friend. Charlie and his son Art, just wonderful people. So I go up to drum, and Charlie says, "Well, you scratched?" And I said, "Scratched?"
Mm.
And he goes, "Yeah, in the grade, you were in the grade two. You didn't show up." And I said, "Charlie, I've never played grade two in my entire life, and I
Yeah.
wasn't being arrogant.
Yeah.
I just had never done that."
Yeah.
And so he laughed, and he goes, "Well, then show me what you're made of." And I won that day. So
Nice. That was a good day, huh?
it was a
That
good
must have
day.
felt great. Cedar City
But
must have looked real beautiful after that.
oh, Cedar City was a great games. I loved it.
Yeah.
But Charlie was a drummer. Always played in the bands in L.A., Beach Cities, L.A. Scots, and started playing in other different bands. But Charlie showed me how to really set up a premiere properly.
Mm.
Uh, Tom Foley, who's another famous drummer from the California era. I'm just sitting there, and Tom's in the judges area in Santa Rosa, and he waves me over. And he goes, "Ah, come on, have a seat, watch this."
Mm.
And Tom sat there watching all these grade one bands, and he's saying, "Now listen to that. Hear what they just did? That was a
Mm.
mistake. They shouldn't have done that." So I'm sitting there with this
Wow,
world-class
man.
judge.
Yeah.
He's telling me how to judge, and
He's just like
yes,
telling you everything he's thinking, huh?
yeah, he's
That's
just telling
awesome.
me. And and here I am sitting in the judges booth,
Yeah.
but judges area at Santa Rosa. People are walking, "What the hell's he doing there?"
Right,
Pardon
right.
my French. But I had so many friends out of California, so many friends out of Canada. Scott Robertson, who's been my instructor since 1989. Uh, Duncan Millar, Reed Maxwell, John Fisher. These guys are my instructors, and they're my
Yeah.
friends. And so anyway, so I moved on. I did solos for quite a while, and then I started burning out on them. I was taking it too seriously,
Mm.
and my temper tantrum of the Denver games. What had happened is was that 94? Yeah, I had won the aggregate for grade one in 94
Wow.
at in the games, and John Thornton, uh, who at that time really made me angry, Susan Thornton's husband,
Mhm.
but he's announcing the winners in drumming, and then he stops and he starts saying how disorganized and how stupid drummers are because they never register before the games. And I'm just sitting there going, what? I said, I registered weeks before, and then he doesn't bother announcing the grade one or the open winner.
Really? He just decided to dump on drummers a bit and then just skip
Yeah,
over the winners.
and then he just forgot about the winner. So I went over to the judging tent. Jim, oh, I can't remember Jim's name. He's the pipe major of Circle of Friends. Who I can't remember the Gallic pronunciation, but Jim is married to Megan's mom. We're all friends, and I said, Jim, I said, is it a new policy that the person announcing the winners doesn't bother announcing the winners of the grade one or the open drumming? And Jim just went white, and he goes, "What happened?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You keep John Thornton away from me." I said, because I will deck him. I
Yeah.
was that angry.
Yeah.
And so I leave. So this I'm a passive aggressive person. My wife hates it, and it happens.
Yeah.
The next year I go to Denver and I win the open aggregate,
Mhm.
professional.
Yeah.
And so you know what I did? I left early.
Did you really? So if one year they're not going to announce that you won, the next year you're not going to stay to hear it announced, huh?
Nope. And Thornton knew full well that's what I had done. And
Uh,
but that finally it had to be 15 years later, 20 years later, that I started reaching out to the Thorntons and being friendly with them.
yeah.
and that's all over and done with. But I'm sorry, I'd worked so hard, and that
Yeah,
really
sure, yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
That really hurt me.
Yeah.
And and then I realized I was talking to my wife, and my wife is very sensible. And I said, JP, I take this far too seriously. And she goes, yes, you do. After I divorced my first wife
Mhm.
in '89, and until I married my second wife, I could spend 10 hours a day drumming
Mm.
easily. That's all they did.
Yeah.
10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And, enough of that. So then so we go into the 2000s. We're having success with the Utah. Um, little headbutting about the management of the band,
Mhm. Mhm.
because it's Andrew and Jeff,
Mhm.
and I kind of follow along with them because they're my buddies and my mentors. And so it was at 2003. Uh, we finally just had a parting of the ways. We
Yeah.
just said,
Yeah.
uh, no, we're just going to do something else. And I mean, it was so hard to walk up to David, Virginia, and hand him my kilt and my jacket and my equipment. I
Yeah.
mean, I had to face them.
Yeah.
These were like my parents,
Yeah.
and I just said, thank you for all you've done for me. I really appreciate it. And they thanked me
Mm.
because I helped build a good drum corps for that band. So then we came in, had a meeting at Andrew's house, and we're
Well,
talking. Okay,
Bruce, if like it happens that bands split, and if it
they
has
do,
to, at least that was a classy interaction. At least you can, show respect to each other as you do so.
but there was a lot of hurt people.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Uh, John Barkley at the time was a bishop, and he just didn't have time to deal with this.
Hmm.
And he and Andrew have not
Bishop, to be
gotten
clear,
along.
just in case anybody listening isn't Mormon, bishop in this case is like what other religions would call like maybe a pastor. It's like the local congregation leader, and they're
Yeah.
usually pretty busy because they usually have it's usually like a temporary thing that they do for a few years aside from their
Mhm.
full time job. So it usually takes up quite a bit of their time.
Yeah, it's crazy busy. And so John was upset because it all happened without him being there. And so we went our own ways. We had the meeting in Andrew's house. So we started talking, what do we want to do? What are we going to call our name? And so my wife, of course, barks out and says, I want to name the band Isle of You.
Isle of You,
Yes.
you as in like a
And
sheep, or you all,
yeah,
or
no, Isle of You, after a sheep.
I love you. I
So
get it.
yeah, so Holly, Andrew's wife, is going, Isle of You, that's a stupid name. And so
Oh.
Jeff knows what I'm doing. Andrew knows what I'm doing. I said,
Yeah.
Holly, just keep saying the name and say it faster. And she goes,
Yeah.
says, Isle of You. I love you. And then she goes, I love you. And he said, I love you too, Holly.
Oh.
So poor Andrew's wife.
Yeah.
She's so patient. So we
Yeah.
finally come up, and someone said, what about Wasatch Pipe Band? And I said, no, we've had a Wasatch Pipe
Yeah,
Band.
that's been done.
And And I said, the problem is what if someone is crazy enough to say, oh, no, you're imposing on our rights?
Mm.
One person from the old band.
Sure, yeah.
And I said, we can't do that because it might have the legal water in it. And I thought, gee, what about bands like Toronto and District and
Right.
all that?
Yeah, that
I
naming
thought,
convention.
and so I said, what about Wasatch and District? And everyone just kind of went, Wasatch and District. And then they started saying, well, we bring pipers and drummers in from all over,
Yeah, so it makes
and
sense.
the whole Wasatch Front. And they said, yeah, Wasatch and District. So that's where we got the name Wasatch and
Well, there
District.
you go.
So
Very
so
nice.
and then we started forming the band. There were a couple of young pipers there who wanted us to get like McCallum Blackwood chanters, and me, the drummer, said no, no, we're not going to get Blackwood chanters. I said because they're fragile
Mm.
and we can't afford $300 a pop.
Mm.
And I said, I tell you, the first time I walk into band practice and a couple of young pipers are there sword fighting with
Yeah.
$300 chanters, I'll strangle them.
Yeah.
And so they said, no, we'll go with the Polypenco or
Like
whatever the
everybody's like,
plastic is.
okay, Bruce actually might do that, so let's let's go with the poly.
Well, it's because I'm sorry, the plastic chanters, they're impossible to destroy
Yep,
unless you
yep.
physically step on one or
Yeah.
smack it against something. And yeah, let's use those chanters for a few years, which they used, the McCallums, and they did a great job. But I think they're using a new chanter now. And if they're using a Blackwood chanter now, fine, they know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And no, no, I can guarantee in Wasatch District, with the way they are set up, no kids are going to be sword fighting with
Right.
chanters.
Yeah.
Uh, the band is set up so incredibly well.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
almost
marvel.
scary.
Yeah.
And but then they asked me, is it okay if we let Mike Postma be the lead drummer? Sure, I don't care.
Mm.
Then we had a big meeting, a big organization meeting, and had all kinds of people in, and people from who had been former Scots and former Utah, blah blah blah, and we had a big organization meeting, and then we got Wasatch District going, and then the band just flourished. Put Mike in as the lead drummer, and Mike's a very talented drummer, but the drummer who just blows me away is Dan Schneider.
Mm.
I've played under him in their grade 4 corps, and and Dan's honest with me. He'll say you're playing crap, and then I wrote a couple of jigs for them, and he looks at it and he goes, "There's no way this corps is going to be able to core this tune."
Mm-hmm.
And you know what coring means?
I assume that it just means have everybody play it all at the same time nicely.
Yes, he
Yeah.
said that it's too complex,
It's like
and
you
so
you might be able to solo it, but you can't core it.
yeah,
I
and
see.
and I said okay, so we mellowed it out, but had a couple of really good years, and then and just started enjoying playing with Wasatch,
Mm-hmm.
and but then I was just running out of steam,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2018, and just tired all the time, and went in, had my heart checked, and I had my left anterior descending heart vein
Mm-hmm.
was 95% occluded.
Oh, really?
It's called the Widowmaker.
Oh
It
no.
When
There's
it goes, and you're
there's a
dead.
great name for a medical condition. Jeez.
Oh yeah, and so it was so bad. I
That's
went
the
in
thing.
and I did the stress test,
Yeah.
and they're monitoring me and doing all this stuff, and they're making all these notes. And then the guy says, "Okay, you're going in for surgery Thursday. This is
Wow.
Tuesday."
Wow.
I said, "Okay," and he goes, "And don't take the stairs when you leave."
Oh, no way.
Like,
Holy
okay.
moly. Like
So
if a stiff breeze is blowing, stay indoors.
yeah,
Wow, that's
so
crazy.
I turned in my gear at Wasatch District, and then
Carefully, right? One piece at a time so you weren't lifting too much.
yeah, and but no, this is after my heart
I
surgery,
see. Okay.
and then I just started helping Jeff run the games with Jeff and Larry,
Yep, yep.
and boy, what is it? There's just so many funny stories over the years, but
Yeah.
I can't remember them all. But just I love listening to drum corps. I
Yeah,
love helping drum corps.
yeah.
I It's just you see the hair stand up on the back of my neck when I listen to a band playing and the bass drum is just hideously tuned.
Mm,
And I will go and offer my help. And
yeah.
sometimes they tell me to go away. But sometimes I say, well, sure, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'll tweak them and get them working.
Hello, friends. Just a quick note to make you aware this podcast is something that I love doing and I will keep doing it no matter what. But if you want to send me money, I won't say a nay. The easiest way to do that is through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/droningonpodcast. We do regular drawings for bagpipey albums, books, sheet music, and more, including Droning On swag. All patrons are in the figurative hat from whence the names of winners are drawn, and there are other benefits to members as well. They're all listed there at patreon.com/droningonpodcast. And speaking of swag, another way to support the show is to buy cool stuff from my little online shop, bagpipeswag.com. There you can find Droning On stuff as well as other pipey and drummy things that my friends and I make. And if you feel so inclined, I genuinely invite you to follow the show on Facebook. It's super fun to have a way to interact over there, to discuss past episodes, and I also like to bounce ideas off of you, my friends, ask you for input on upcoming interviews, that kind of stuff. I'd like to invite you to join in on virtual book clubs and probably lots of other cool stuff that I just haven't even thought of yet as of this recording. It's easy to find. Just get on Facebook and search Droning On Podcast. And if Instagram is more your jam, we're also on there at droning.on.podcast. You can also email the show at thedroningonpodcast@gmail.com. And links to these sites, social media accounts, and more are in the show notes. Leaving the show a positive rating and review helps others to find it, so feel free to do that. And thank you again for listening, you cool human you.
Oh, great story. 2003.
Mm-hmm.
2003. For some reason, I wasn't playing with the band that summer, and I can't remember why. But probably something at work. But it was the grade three Utah Pipeband versus the grade three Isle of Mull. Okay,
Hmm.
the Scots weren't playing that year because they were getting ready for the Worlds,
Yeah.
and they honestly just didn't want to compete. Okay, fine. So Isle of Mull has my little sister in the band, Megan, and I just love Megan.
Where was
And
Isle of Mole based at the time?
out of Colorado,
Yeah, I was thinking it was a
very.
Colorado band. Are they the one that march in like plain kilts?
No, that's the Irish band.
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
I can't remember their name though. But no, Isle of Mull was like City of Denver and Isle of Mull were the two heavy hitters,
Gotcha.
and then Fort Collins too.
Hmm.
Fort
Hmm.
Collins, who went in 2003 and took fifth in the Worlds.
Yeah,
Their drum corps won in the Worlds in 3B.
yeah,
Holy crap!
yeah. Way to
That's
go.
that's how good these guys are. So Isle of Mull is there. They're tuning up, and I'm listening, and their bass is just off a nano shave. So I go over in it's my favorite bass in the world, the 28 by 18 on Dante, the old style. I love
Yeah,
that drum.
we had one of those in high school, one of those 18-inch thick ones.
Yes,
Heavy, but sounded awesome.
but gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I go over and I help tweak them, and I help them tweak their tenors, and their drum corps beat Utah's drum corps.
Mm.
Sorry, guys.
Oopsie. Well, at least you weren't
Oh,
in any sort of official capacity at the time, so.
no, no, I wasn't. I was helping out at the games. I think I was the president. Was I the president of WSPA at that time? No, the branch. I think I was the branch president
Yeah.
again at that time. But that was fun. But I helped tweak their drum corps, and they won, which to me is a feather in my cap.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hooray! Plus, it was my little sister's band.
Right. Gotta
Oh,
make you
my
feel good.
my complaint about Isle of Mull.
Hmm.
Okay, for some reason it was at the Murray Park when they had the competition there, and so they had bands playing simultaneously. We had enough judges,
Oh, sure.
so we're getting ready for our MSR, and way over there is Isle of Mull, and Isle of Mull comes on with this just insanely beautiful tune
Hmm.
as they're marching, and I'm just sitting there going, "Wow, that's a beautiful tune," and I missed our roll off.
They were so good they completely distracted you.
So I went to Susan
uh,
Thornton, who was a piper in their band, and I said, I'm submitting an official complaint. And she goes, what? And I said, your band sounded so good in your medley that it distracted me on my MSR. She goes, yeah, give it a shot, you know.
So in
But
future, we'll expect you to downgrade your playing a bit, please, so that you
oh,
don't distract
please.
the other bands.
But that's a band that broke up.
Yeah.
They lost their pipe major, and then they tried another pipe major who didn't really work out, and then
Yeah.
they put in a guy who was not a good pipe major, but a good guy, but they just were not doing well, and the
Yeah.
drum corps had it, and they just broke up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's the more that I learn a little bit about like these sort of like histories of especially our local pipe band history, but also
mhm.
other places too. I mean, like Triumph Street having existed for a while, and then recently, I believe they've become disbanded just within the last 2 years, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they just ended it. Hmm.
It just makes me think like you gotta preserve the personal connections as much as possible because the organizations can be very fleeting. I mean, some bands last for hundreds of years, but very few. And so it's like
Yes,
we're a deck of cards, and we're going to be reshuffled. So
yes,
be nice to people because you never know what shape the bands are going to take in future. And it's a community of people, not so much of sort of like tribal bands.
right. And it used to be tribal bands,
Yeah.
50 years ago, but not now.
Hmm.
No, I've played in. Good Lord, uh, just let me go down the list. The Salt Lake Scots. I played in Sierra.
Hmm.
I've played in Utah. I played in the band out of Ogden. Uh, oh,
I
Rob,
don't know
the Lowe's.
not the university one up there, right?
No, not the university, but I can't remember their name. Boy, there goes the brain. You turn 64 and your brain
You
goes. But
got
I
your heart
played,
fixed. Next is your brain.
yeah, but I played with them for a season. Then I came back, played with Utah. Uh, but I've helped out. I used to help Payson,
Hmm. Hmm.
but they seem to have a really good program right now.
Well,
They don't.
that's Diana is really well, and she's got the she's got help as well, of course. But she's running a pretty tight ship right now.
Well, I saw Matt Biggs doing something with him a while ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's part of the magic is she's really good at reaching out to people and saying like, "Hey, I'm humble, so will you come help?" Because
Oh,
rather than being insular and being like, "I've got this, nobody touch me, I've got this," she's very open about that, and I think that's part of the magic of it.
oh, and Matt's an outstanding
He's
drummer.
such a
He's
great
just
drummer and such a
great.
nice person. He helps a lot.
And but Dan Schneider, I think Dan's just playing in the grade two right now, but he should be leading a drum corps.
Mm.
He's that good, and he just has he drums like me. In
That's
fact,
that's how you know he's good, right? If he
in fact,
drums like Bruce, then he's good.
I know I'm listening to something he wrote, and he's playing it, and I'm going, that's really good. And I said, want me to be honest? And he goes, you want what? And I said, it sounds like something I wrote, which is another
Therefore,
Payson
I
story.
love it.
Another Payson story.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we're at an hour. How long does
No,
this go?
give me some more, man. I've got to take my kid to a basketball game in a little bit. I'll tell you if
Oh,
it
okay.
starts getting too close. You just keep talking.
Okay. Another Payson story. This was years ago when it was me and Dave Keachy, and we were helping all the bands, setting bands up, writing music for bands. And Payson comes through, and they're playing this tune and the
And to be
setting,
clear,
and I'm
this
just
is
going,
the Payson High School program, right?
Payson High School.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going, wow, that's really a nice setting. And they're finishing, and they walk in, and they walk off. The drummers go, wow, that was a great setting you guys were playing. Who wrote that? Oh, you.
Yeah, my compliments to the arranger.
Oh, okay. But okay, here's my world's greatest drumming story,
Yeah,
and this one blew me away.
yeah.
Um, I do things with Jim Laughlin out in New Zealand once in a
Hmm.
while. I'll send music to him, and
Yeah.
just so he has a repertoire. And so my wife has friends in New Zealand, and so she's talking to somebody about who are they're in pipe bands,
Hmm.
and they're talking about this tune they're playing, "Ranting Roving Robin," and uh, and this woman says, "Do you know this Bruce Baxter who wrote this?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's my husband."
That's
So
awesome.
I'm running around with this swollen head, going, "Well,
Yeah.
a band in New Zealand's playing one of my tunes."
Right. Yeah.
So I was difficult to live with for about an hour and a half, and then my wife humbled me, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
Yeah. Way
You know,
cool, man.
when I can write a setting that someone likes enough that they
Yeah.
want to play it.
That's gotta feel good. Absolutely.
Yes. And well, it's like us. When I played with Utah, we played, I can't remember the name. It's a 5/4 that has that hanging last note. Dum ba dee da da dee da da. I can't remember the name. Yeah. What are
Yeah. What is
there was a
that?
piper who
I
calls
know
it
that
calls
tune.
it like a hanging note or a hanging chad. But I never could write a setting to it. It was always a pain in the neck.
Well,
And
yeah.
then I
Five
saw
four is
this,
kind of weird.
yeah, it's weird. And then I saw this band out of Copenhagen had written one, and I'm looking at it and I go, whoa, that's a pretty cool setting. And so I took it, made a few little adjustments, and then we played it in Utah when I was
Hmm.
helping them.
Hmm.
And everyone liked it. But then Deanne got sick of the tune, and
Hmm.
but I thought, what's it's the one thing we played really well. So
Darn it! I know that we played that tune in high school too, so I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we picked it up after if that program picked it up after you'd played it at Utah.
yeah, and then I'll tell you the tune I hate the most in the entire world
Yeah, which one?
is the At Long Last.
Oh, I know that title, but I can't think of the
Oh,
melody.
it just goes on and on and on.
And so it's at long last, this tune is over.
And so Deanne wanted to play it, and I wrote a setting for it, and I
Yeah.
just hated it. It's a 4/4 with repeats, and I said, let's just play it without the repeats.
Yeah,
It's palatable.
yeah.
We were down in Phoenix to do a competition, and Mesa, the city of Mesa, was playing that tune, and they played that tune all day long.
Yeah.
And we got back to Salt Lake, and Deanne said, I don't think we're going to play that tune.
That's what she needed was exposure to it, right? To realize
Oh,
that it's too
jeez.
much.
It was just too much. Oh, it just goes on forever, and I hate
Yeah.
that. Oh, what other tunes? My favorite tunes in the world, the Hawk, which is a hornpipe.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know that one.
Look it up on YouTube. There's a
Yeah.
guy playing it with a chanter and with a guitar.
Okay.
It's Moving Cloud, Moving Cloud, and then he plays the Hawk, and you'll know the Hawk
Yeah.
because the ending of the last part goes it's just so cool.
Yeah.
And I know Ross Morrill knows that tune, and
Yeah.
Wasatch has got to play that sometime.
There's another one that you're going, hey, Wasatch, why don't you play this?
Yes, because of the band I'm going to throw this hard stuff at.
Yeah, yeah,
Because because Ross loves to learn new tunes. They've got Justin in there now. Those two can play
right,
this stuff.
for
If we're
sure.
getting 15 other pipers to play it, that's the game.
Yeah,
But
you got to
yeah,
chord
they're my experiment band. Even though I told them their attack was predatory one time.
it.
So that was a clinic with Terry Lee
Yeah.
and Scott Robertson, and Terry Lee, and was it Terry Lee's son or Jack Lee's son? I can't remember. Angus was his name. But were you at the
I've,
clinic at Fort Douglas?
no, I to the clinic
Oh,
because of work, but I remember
you
it happening. Yeah,
you missed it. Oh man,
yeah.
it was great. But
Everybody was going on about it afterward. I definitely wish I'd made it.
Wasatch started their tune, but it was like, bang, and it's like, wow, dudes, and they stopped, and
Their
then
attack was predatory. Great way to
yeah,
describe
and
it.
Terry goes, well, what did you guys think? And I said, well, can I be honest? I mean, I love you guys. You're my friends. I said, your attack seems really predatory.
It scares me.
Yeah, yeah, just play into it. Just do a roll off.
Yeah.
And I hopefully they heard me. I don't know. They may think I'm just full of hot air. I don't know. But see, I judged drumming for a long time,
Yeah.
and I love I love some things when I love to hear them.
Yeah.
BJ Gunn is really good at ensemble,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he knows he knows what ensemble's supposed to sound like, and so that's
Cool.
what I thought. Sounded predatory,
Yeah.
but yeah, you missed a really good clinic,
Yeah. I've heard it was great. Not just
and
the
I
sandwiches.
oh yeah, everything was delicious. That's what I'm going to do for Deanna is or Deanne, like I'm sorry,
You're getting them.
um,
Yeah. Deanne and Diana, of course, are. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm going to make sure she has enough money to buy lunch for
Hmm.
everybody for that
Yeah.
the invitational.
Yeah.
Um,
That's gonna be fun.
but I sat in on the clinic with Scott Robertson. I sat in on the beginning clinic. He goes, Bruce,
Mm.
this is beginning drumming, and I said, I know. He goes, but you're not going to hear anything. You're
Mm.
not going to learn anything. Yes, I will. I said, Scott, you're a master.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn something.
Yeah.
And I said, and I'll keep my mouth shut unless you ask me a direct question. He
Hmm.
goes, okay. And so he taught the whole clinic with me sitting there with keeping my big mouth shut. But I learned.
Yeah.
I learned.
That's the attitude to have, right?
Yeah.
It's not a destination; it's a road. You
Yeah,
always learn,
it is. And I mean, you're learning something new every day.
for sure, man.
And but I love hearing kid pipers
Yeah.
who are good. There was a 13-year-old kid playing his pipes, a little chubby little kid,
Hmm.
and I'm just listening to this thing and going, "That's immaculate."
Yeah.
And kind of holding his pipes a little skittywampus, but
Sure.
just beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's what we need
I
more
had a
of.
student like that just a year or two ago who just like I'd teach him something one week and think I was ready to teach him the next week, and he'd be 4 steps ahead of me the next week. And pretty quick, he was getting his pipes out and playing like he was like one week he shows up, he's like, I've been working on this tune called Steam Train. And I was like, oh, really? Which part have you been working on? He's like, all of them. And so I got
Whoa!
my pipes out, and I was like, all right, which part are you going to play? He's like, I could play any of them. And he, like, absolutely could play all of them really well. And this is, like, months, just a few months into learning, like, just some of these kids, man, just blows your mind.
How old is he?
He's probably about that age now. He's got to be a younger teenager. He's probably around 13 or 14 now.
You see, and he's going to be there doing this 40 years from
Yeah,
now.
exactly. It's like you just imagine, man, where he's going to
That's
be.
that's why programs like Payson and
Yeah.
Ben Lomond and
Hmm.
all of these programs, the Dave Barkley dream, get
Hmm.
the kids playing,
Yeah.
and he did.
Yeah.
And
That was what part of Zach's scheme, Zach Lee's, before he passed away.
oh,
He invested
Zach,
in a 3D printer that I actually have sitting right here next to me, and he started
uh-huh.
designing these practice chanters. And part of his goal here was to make practice chanters cheap enough that they could compete with recorders. And then we've got Laura.
Wow.
Laura, I know her maiden name. Her current name is Broadbank, I think.
Hmm.
Brockbank, maybe. So she had played him down at the Payson program, and maybe with White Peaks too. Anyway, she currently has some kind of role with the I think it's the Alpine School District music
Mhm.
program. So the whole scheme was we're going to make Chanters cheap and then use that connection to replace the recorder program in elementary school music classes with practice chanters instead. This was
Oh, you
Zach's
guys,
plan, right? And so
you are so conniving. Oh,
maybe
I
we'll
love
still
it.
bring it to fruition someday. We'll see.
Wouldn't that be
Yeah,
wonderful?
wouldn't it be cool?
Because
Cast
I
that
don't
net
like the
wide,
recorder
man.
program. They don't learn music very well on the recorders. They will
Yeah,
learn it on a practice chanter.
yeah.
So yeah, it's 9 notes, but still 9 notes.
Hmm.
Um, oh, I miss Zach. What a
Yeah, me too.
brilliant piper and learning to be a brilliant drummer.
He was, yeah, like I'm not a drummer, so I can't judge as well. I know he was the best piper I've ever known, and had pretty quickly become a very impressive drummer. Yeah,
Yeah, and he I don't think he'll ever know the impact he had because I've had people from back east going, "Oh, yeah, I heard about Zach,"
yeah,
and
yeah. Far-reaching.
ah, so hopefully I haven't said anything that will offend anyone. If it
Oh,
does, I'm
not at
sorry.
all, not at all. And honestly, some of the folks who might have what you might call a rebuttal, I doubt it would actually be like a rebuttal. But I'd like to interview more people who have been around for a while in the Utah piping, scene, and so it'll be really fun to compare accounts at some point.
Oh, John and Jim Barkley,
Yeah.
Andrew Morrill.
Yep.
Um,
I interviewed Ross just a week or two ago,
oh, you
and so
did.
yep. So my plan is then to move on to Andrew, and I'm gonna interview Jeff here in a couple weeks as well.
Oh,
Um,
Ross, he's such a brilliant pipe maker.
yeah,
Ah,
very pretty too. His sets that he's working on.
yeah, he's.
Um,
I hope he makes himself a millionaire. So,
yeah,
can I finish with one last story?
yeah. Please do. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, 93, we were at Santa Rosa, and there was Utah who, we'd done really well. Been successful.
Yeah.
And then there was another, was it 53rd Street Cabaret? But Charlie and Art Caporal were the drummers for that. And then there was a band called Hamilton,
Hmm.
and they were sponsored by Noodle Roney. And we're all just kind of
Really,
chuckling.
my
Yeah,
noodle
Noodle Roney.
Roni, huh?
Yeah, these guys ought to be a bunch of jerks.
Let
But
that be a lesson that you can never reach too far to find sponsors. You never
e-
know who's going to want to sponsor a pipe band.
exactly. So anyway, we'd finished competing. So there's me and Charlie and Art Caporal. That was back in my drinking days. So we're all drinking a pint of
Hmm.
Guinness and saluting each other. Oh, yeah, well, we did really well. We're probably going to place today. Hamilton marches up, and the word juggernaut is the only word I can use to describe it.
Really?
They were just huge and perfect, and they're
Wow.
playing in grade three.
Yeah.
That is the St. Thomas alumni band now.
Oh, really? No
Yeah.
longer sponsored by Noodle Roni. Do you know? Has that continued?
No, no,
Yeah.
they're not sponsored. They pretty much have anyone who wants to sponsor them,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's what's his name? The piper down the world class. Uh, boy, there you go. There goes the brain again. But he helped build that program, and they're just. But
I've got
Blair
to
Brown is playing with him, so
I've got to imagine that their sound was especially impressive on the heels of you dudes hanging out on the side, just like giggling about Noodle Roni, and then all of a sudden the sound is just amazing.
yeah.
That probably made it even more impressive.
Well, due to politics, we all tried to convince him to play grade two the next day
Oh
to
yeah,
give
get
us
him
a
out of there.
chance,
Yeah, yeah.
and because of they were from the one that was it PPBSO does Texas.
Mm,
They couldn't play grade three or grade two because it would mess up their standing in their home place. So
gotcha,
they had to play grade three.
gotcha. So goodbye to gold for everybody else who was there, huh?
Yeah, and which is fine.
Yeah, at
It
least
was
you get to hear him play.
such a joy to listen to the
Yeah,
play. I mean, wow,
yeah.
cool. So that's my ending story. So
Beautiful.